We are back. I am by myself today. I'm gonna put an awful image in your head right now, but I made hash browns this morning for breakfast. You know, I shredded up my potatoes, froze them up, got them into little hockey pucks, you know, fried them. And I coughed while eating one of them, and a little chunk of potato is somewhere up in my nostril, and it hurts really bad. So if I'm like not in the best mood, that's why. We're doing a Regulation G tier list now. We did one of these, I think, I don't even know if I actually uploaded it, but we did one of these a long time ago, right? It has been a while since Regulation G started, like 2 months now, I think. And the World Championships are in 1 month. So we're gonna go ahead and do a ranking of the viability of the Regulation G restricted Pokemon. I'm gonna do a non-restricted tier list on stream later today. If you guys want to join me for that, I'm gonna try to get this up as soon as possible. But yeah, the link to my Twitch channel will be down below if you don't watch me. I'm gonna go live at like 1 p.m. CST, maybe like 2, depending on how quick I can get my walk done. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. If you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and yeah. So what I want to do first and foremost is add another tier. I do believe that there is a necessity for an F tier. I think that there are some restricteds that are just beyond help. You know, you could say like Moxie boosted. My favorite Pokemon is Mewtwo. I don't care. I don't care. Look, let me open up Pokemon Showdown. Let me show you guys something real quick. Let me explain to you why Mewtwo has absolutely no sauce. Mewtwo. Make sure we do Regulation G. Mewtwo, not Mew. You're okay, Mew. I like you. This channel is partnered with GamerSupps. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order GamerSupps through my link in the description down below or with code MoxieBoosted at checkout for 10% off. GamerSupps is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video. Is basically just a worse Cali Shadow. And you might say, no, Mewtwo's better than Cali Shadow because it doesn't have that ghost weakness or that dark 4 times weakness. It doesn't have like the times 4 weaknesses that Cali Shadow does. I don't care. Cali Shadow has 20 speed points on Mewtwo, 9 special attack points, or not 9. It has 11 special attack points on Mewtwo. It's got like comparable bulk. Mewtwo's 106, 90, 90. Cali Shadow is 180, 100. So it's better on the special side. And like, you're not using that attack stat, so that doesn't matter. Not only that, but Calyrex Shadow has access to Astral Barrage, right? That's like enough of a reason to run it. And you don't have to worry about Fake Out. Mewtwo, it's getting outsped by Koraidon, Miraidon, Calyrex Shadow. It's just, there's too much in the metagame. Flutter Mane is like a counter to Mewtwo. Like, that's shameful. And what are you going to do with Mewtwo? You're going to click Ice Beam? You're going to click Psyshock with Sword of Ruin? I certainly tried. I couldn't even get in a Master Ball with that. Maybe it's a skill issue, but it's usually pretty easy to get in a Master Ball, but I couldn't do it with Mewtwo. I gave up. F tier. That being said, S tier. I feel like I don't even need to explain why this guy's S tier. But I will. I mean, I already explained why it was better than Mewtwo, but the reason it's S tier is Cali Shadow is one of the faces of like Balance Berry teams. Balance Berry being a term you use. It's like derogatory for people who play like Urshifu, Rillaboom, and Cineroar. You know, don't be careful throwing that term around. You don't want to offend anybody. But our Balance baristas out here, they're serving up the coffee that does well in tournaments. You know, you have Incineroar, you have Rillaboom, you have Urshifu, and you have like Clefairy. Sometimes Urshifu will be like a Mienshao, by the way. And like Raging Bolt. I'm sure you've seen this team before. And that's because it works. You know, you have double fake out options. You have like Scarf Urshifu. That's the wrong Urshifu. It's usually Urshifu Water. You have like Scarf Urshifu for just dealing with like setup mons. Like, you know, Zamazenta is usually like a little bit of an annoying matchup for Calyrex Shadow sometimes. But, you know, and you also have Raging Bolt just to break holes and things like Boost Your Energy, or even like an Assault Vest set. But basically, it's just like a team that works. Calyrex Shadow is absurdly broken in that you can use these Pokemon around it to position it in such a way where it can score a single or double KO, at which point Calyrex Shadow is extremely difficult to stop. There's a few flavors of Calyrex Shadow. There's Choice Specs Calyrex Shadow, which specializes more in that go, 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 get KO sort of things, but ends up being a little bit weak to the likes of wide guard Pokemon like Zamazenta, or even just like, you know, other niche wide guard options like Mienshao, or I even saw a Garganacl once. But in that case, you can run like Psy Shock. It'll allow you a single target attack. Also, usually with Specs Kali Shadow, you'll have like Psychic Terrain active and Expanding Force because that's also a busted move this guy gets. And the rest is just filler. I've seen like Terra Blast on this guy. But the point is, Specs Caloric Shadow is very strong, but it isn't the only Caloric Shadow. There's also Sash. I've seen Scarf. For a while, one of the better ones was Citrus Berry. I even ran leftovers at Indianapolis to get my Worlds invite. But yeah, Caloric Shadow is able to be a bulky special attacker. It doesn't need much special attack to be broken, especially since as one allows for it to snowball. It gets +1 for every KO it gets, and also turns off berries. This thing is just broken. And yeah, also going in S tier is going to be Calyrex Ice. These two are just, they're the kings of the format, which makes sense. Two kings, right? But the reason for that, I mean, like Calyrex Ice, look, this is like the difference between Calyrex Ice and Calyrex Shadow. All right, switch you out for you. And I mean, you get the point. It's still balanced berry. Some Calyrex Ice teams have also opted for Ogerpon Cornerstone, like Fede's team here, because Ogerpon Cornerstone makes it extremely easy for you to get off your Trick Room. It's a sturdy Pokemon that is able to run Follow Me, so you know you can go for like Follow Me. They double into the Ogerpon. It's always going to guarantee to survive a turn. Cali Ice gets a Trick Room up, and then it can go ahead and click Glacial Lance. That's like, it's one of the most broken moves in the game. 120 base power, cannot miss, hits both opponents. Once again, turns off berries, gets an attack boost for every KO it takes. Broken Pokemon. A lot of Terra types it can run. I'm personally a big fan of Fire. It prevents burns, and yeah, and it lets you resist fire moves. But that makes you a little bit weaker to Urshifu. That being said, another set that Calyrex Shadow likes to be ran next to is Scarf Urshifu, because Scarf Urshifu can run, you know, Surging Strikes to deal with the fire types that beat it, like Incineroar or whatever, because it does have a weakness to, like, you know, Will-O-Wisp Incineroar. That's like the biggest issue. But also, it really likes coaching partners. Coaching is a really good option for Calyrex Shadow, which typically runs the Clear Amulet item, meaning you can't be intimidated or parting shotted or whatever. And that just allows you to snowball early. You get an attack and a defense boost, making you even more difficult to KO, and then you just spam your Glacial Lance. The rest of the set is usually Trick Room, High Horsepower, and like, oh, I already said Trick Room, I just didn't write it. In Trick Room, yeah. And yeah, it's a pretty strong Pokemon. You can even run it on like soft Tailwind teams. Like if you have like speed control options, sometimes people opt for like Turbo Cali Ice, which I'm not a big fan of. I like middling speed Cali Ice where you can know what you're like faster and slower against. But it's a very strong Pokemon. It's extremely busted. And there's also just other coaching options. One thing that I have seen run on like the hard Trick Room Cali Ice sets is Scarf Annihilate, because Scarf Annihilate not only has access to Final Gambit to absolutely KO something with its, you know, massive 110 HP stat, since it does the same amount of damage as its HP when it uses the move, but also it's another coaching Pokemon. And then you can just run like Shadow Claw. And yeah, it's got it all. It's a cool little guy. He's a cool little guy. Definitely an S tier, and we can see that in the rankings. Cali Ice won the last major event online, and Cali Ice is one of the most consistent top cutters in the format. So yeah. Next up is Koraidon. Koraidon, this might be a little controversial. I think Koraidon, I think its time has passed. It's not the best. I think it's B tier. You can make the argument for like low A tier. I think it's B tier. I'm also going to rank these within the tiers. So, or I'm going to try to remember to. I'm probably going to forget. I think it's B tier. Koraidon's very strong. It's better than Groudon in like every way, shape, and form. Basically because it's a dragon type that sets up sun rather than a ground type that sets up sun. That is inherently useful. And also Koraidon doesn't have to miss Precipice Blades. Along with that, Koraidon's able to run a Flutter Mane as a partner, which allows for Flutter Mane to have Photosynthesis most of the time and not need to run the Booster Energy item. They usually will still run Booster Energy, but they don't have to. You can now run like Focus Sash. It opens up a lot of options for the guy. You can run like Icy Wind. You can run Shadow Ball, Moonblast, Protect. Sometimes they'll put like Taunt on here or whatever. I've even seen Thunder Wave. And on top of that, you can put like Chi-Yu. Basically, like Koraidon teams are like the face of screw you, we're clicking buttons sort of things. Well, I guess that's also Miraidon. Definitely these two guys have like the biggest screw you, we're clicking buttons sort of archetypes. But we can see like a standard Koraidon. This is actually a little bit of an interesting Koraidon. I haven't seen Venusaur Koraidon yet. but this one did pretty well in the VR tour. You see Collision Course, Flare Blitz, Flame Charge. Flare Blitz is, or not Flare Blitz, Flame Charge is actually really good on Koraidon since you don't get Icy Wind dropped. It makes it so you can speed boost, and then you don't have to worry about like the Flutter Mane to have your speed control. We see Sash Chi-Yu, we see Raging Bolt with the Assault Vest. Raging Bolt with AV on Koraidon is actually really strong because Booster Bolt is already one of the better options, but you definitely like miss the bulk of AV Raging Bolt when you opt for that over the booster energy. But with Sun active, it doesn't even matter. You just always have it. So yeah, Venusaur is definitely interesting. You're able to go for Sleep Powder and stuff. And I like the Soft Trick Room option. This is a really cool team. I think this is a really innovative Koraidon option. But we can see like other Koraidons. You have to go pretty far. Like, do you remember how I said like Cali Ice and Cali Shadow are the best in the format? All right, here's the top cut. Here are all the people who are good enough to not really have to worry about that. And here's the rest of the, the tournament. Okay. But you can see the deal. Koraidon is definitely more like, I'm clicking buttons sort of mon. Oh my god, not a Groudon in sight. Humanity is healing. All right. So yeah, definitely a B tier. Not like nearly as powerful or oppressive as the rest of the Pokemon on this list. Miraidon, I'm gonna have to throw an A tier, and that's just because it does what Koraidon wants to do in that it clicks a single button. Koraidon, there's nuance to it. It's like, man, do I Flare Blitz this turn? Do I Terra? Do I Close Combat? Not Close Combat. Do I Collision Course? Do I Flame Charge? You have to use like 40% of your brain. Miraidon, there's no brain there. Actually, no, you have to use you have to use like 1% of your brain because the other 99% is able to do whatever else you want. Like the 1% is deciding whether or not you want to click Volt Switch or Electro Drift or Discharge. I'm not kidding you. Miraidon runs like 3 electric moves usually, but there has been an increase of Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam because defensive Terra will always end up being better in the long run. But I guess we can start from the beginning with Miraidon. Miraidon would run Terra Electric actually for the longest time. Terra Electric, its moves would be Discharge next to like a Terra Ground Pokemon or a Ground Immune Pokemon or just Pokemon with like Wide Guard or whatever. Volt Switch, Electro Drift, and Dragon Pulse or Draco Meteor. I like Draco Meteor. So basically, the way it would work is Koraidon would be paired with like Farigiraf. Usually it'd be like Terra Ground. You'd put like Blood Moon Ursaluna. You would put a Whimsicott. And these were like your main 4 guys. That's all that really mattered. And Miraidon was able to choose a couple of options. It had an option for every situation, despite most of them being electric moves. So Hadron Engine, you have a 33% boost in special attack when Electric Train is active. You also set up Electric Train, meaning nothing goes to sleep. And with Terra Electric, you have a 2x multiplier on your stab moves on your stab electric moves rather than 1.5. And then with the choice specs, it's 1.5 on top of that. So, and also you have the Electric Train boost, which is 1.3. So your options were Volt Switch for kill and switch, Electro Drift for kill, Discharge for kill everything, and Draco Meteor for that's a ground type. So Miraidon is very good. It was able to win the first event in Indianapolis, but since then Miraidon has had to adapt a little bit. We can see Keisuke running a little bit of a different variant of it. You can see Iron Hands is also very good with Miraidon because you're a fake out AV Pokemon with a booster energy active. Farigiraf is still very essential. We see Choice Band, Urshifu Rapid Strike. Miraidon is definitely just hyper offense, go, kill, go, right? We can even see that with Choice Scarf, Chi-Yu with Terra Ground, because you want to make sure that Chi-Yu is on the field for another multiplier. And you don't have to worry about KOing it with Electro Drift, or not Electro Drift, with Discharge. So yeah, Miraidon, very strong. It literally just does what Koraidon wishes it could do. Click one button and not have to worry about anything. But it's also very exploitable. I mean, it's weak to Wide Guard. 99% of the time, the opponent's going to be clicking Volt Switch. Like, there's almost no reason to not click Volt Switch, truth be told. I've never seen anyone not click Volt Switch turn 1, to be honest. Unless they have, like, a really good lead. Next up, Terapagos. How the mighty have fallen. Ladies and gentlemen, let's try to find a single Terapagos. One Terapagos in this top. Is it even on the usage? There's 24 Terapagos in the whole tournament. Or no, not 24. There were 22 Terapagos in the whole tournament. In day 1. In 0. In day 2. I wish they could. Where's the day one usage? I want to see the day one usage. Yeah, whatever. But you see my point. If Terapagos isn't making day 2 at all in an online event, something has gone very wrong with the Pokemon. I will also say that it's not bad. I mean, Zamazenta is still a good Pokemon, and it's nowhere to be seen in day 2 of this event. So for that reason, we're going to the previous event. So we can look at some samples. We'll be sampling some Pokemon here. Let's go with, I guess NAIC would probably be the biggest sample size. Where's NAIC? Here it is. So, Terapagos got second at NAIC. Hi, Wo-chan. So Terapagos got second at NAIC on Aurelian's team. Now, I think that Terapagos is a really interesting Pokemon in that on paper, it feels very weak, and then in practice, it can be oppressive in a way that is only enabled by pressure caused by other Pokemon. So basically, let's say that you have a Terapagos and its choice specs, and there is a Flutter Mane next to it. Terapagos' main issue on 99% of teams in the matchup will be beating Urshifu Rapid Strike, which can run Choice Scarf close combat and deal a ton of damage to it. If you lead off with Flutter Mane and Terapagos, and the opponent leads off with Scarf Urshifu, there is a decision the opponent needs to make. That Scarf Urshifu is being threatened by Moonblast from the opposing Flutter Mane that will one-shot it if they refuse to Terra. However, if they do decide to Terra and that Flutter Mane goes for Icy Wind, or I guess it doesn't matter if they Icy Wind. If they do decide to Terra and survive the hit, they will now die to a Terra Starstorm. Basically, when you're playing against Terapagos, you have to be careful with what you choose to Terra and when you choose to Terra, because Terra Starstorm hits any Pokemon that's Terrastalized for super effective damage. That's kind of crazy. It's also just like a normal type move if it doesn't Terra. Meaning that off of choice specs, it's actually just a 120 base power nuke. So for that reason, Terapagos is an interesting pressure Pokemon, but it deals pretty significantly lower damage compared to other restricteds. Especially if it decides to go for Terrastalization to make that move hit 2 targets, because now it doesn't actually get the 1.5 times stab bonus, it gets the 1.3. And it's significantly weaker. So that's the thing. It's an interesting mon. I don't think it's the best anymore. I also think its time has passed. It's going to be going below Koraidon in B tier. Yeah, I don't see it doing nearly as well as it used to. Lugia, I'm going to put in D tier, and I don't need to explain too much why. Lugia has one gimmick. It's multi-scale weakness policy, or like leftovers Calm Mind setup. It loses to Urshifu. It loses to almost every other restricted. If someone can show me a good Lugia team that isn't just weakness policy setup, because I'll be honest, that's not going to win a tournament, I'd be open to trying it out. I'm very much a Lugia hater. I think Lugia is like a huge noob trap where people will be like, but it isn't just like a noob trap. It's also good like training wheels Pokemon. If you want to teach someone how to play VGC, you can give them a weakness policy Lugia team, and it's very much like, here's the flowchart, activate your own weakness policy, click Aeroblast, and then maybe you'll win. It's a good training wheels team, but you know what's a better training wheels team? Kyogre. Kyogre, I'm going to put in A tier. Not only because it's a training wheels team, but it's like if you put training wheels on a motorcycle. It is so simple to run at a low level. If you're at the bottom tables, like if you're just beginning the tournament and you're not sure who you're going to face, you'll be facing absolutely new players. Tailwind plus Water Spout. GG, shake my hand. But if you're playing against better players, you have options. So, the typical Kyogre team at the moment will be running Kyogre, Tornadus, Urshifu Rapid Strike. Usually there's like an Incineroar, even though you have Rain up, you still like Incineroar. And there's a few other like variations of it. I'm, for one, a very big fan of the Wo-Chen variant. I ran at NAIC. I did pretty well. It also took 4th on Shiliang Tame's team. I have to just make sure I repeat that every time someone asks. But Kyogre is really interesting. It's able to do a bunch of different things. It can go hyper offense mode. It can go sort of like bulky mode. But I think that the best Kyogre at the moment is definitely the Assault Vest Kyogre, because that is the best matchup into basically... It is the best matchup into more Pokemon into most Pokemon out of every Kyogre variant. And that's mostly enabled due to Terra. Terra Grass, AV Kyogre, is a very annoying Pokemon to KO. As a water type, as like a grass type, like your best options for hitting those things are going to be like flying moves, fire moves and ice moves. Kyogre being a water type as its base typing means that it's kind of risky to go for Ice Beam into it because you might deal 2 damage rather than 200. And that Assault Vest is definitely going to be decreasing the damage since there aren't a lot of physical ice types other than Chien-Pao. And fire moves, Rain is active. You basically don't have a fire weakness while Rain is up. Also, Kyogre just threatened to one-shot like fire Pokemon with Water Spout or Origin Pulse. And as for flying moves, that's pretty decent, but your best flying move on most teams is going to be Bleak Wind Storm from Tornadus, which, with spread damage, Kyogre's massive special defense stat, and the AV, not doing too much. Like, you can handle it, and then you just get one shot back with Origin Pulse or Ice Beam or Thunder. So, Kyogre with AV is very strong right now. Tornadus, next to it, allows for you that speed control. Urshifu, usually is still going to be running Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf Urshifu is very strong, and that's going to allow for Kyogre plus Urshifu leads to be very oppressive. You have to choose which one to fake out if you're like playing like a Trick Room team or like a more bulky, pivoty balance team. So, you know, Choice Scarf Surging Strikes with Terra Water in the Rain is going to one-shot whatever. Not whatever. It's going to one-shot a lot of things, especially since a lot of these Urshifu are running Adamant now. And yeah, basically Kyogre, very good. It only has a couple of like negative matchups. I think its worst matchup in the metagame is going to be into Zamazenta, since a lot of them started running Wide Guard again instead of Iron Defense. But also it has a pretty negative matchup into like Terapagos, since Terapagos is able to remove the rain pretty effectively. That being said, with Rain Dance on your Tornadus, it isn't too big of an issue, but really, like, I think Kyogre is like one of the most neutral Pokemon in the metagame right now. If you want to have a good chance of winning a tournament while also being able to play well into most things, Kyogre's sort of like on that same level as Cali Ice and Cali Shadow. And for that reason, I'm going to put it top of A tier, but not quite S tier. Cali Ice and Cali Shadow can play well into literally everything. Kyogre can play well into like 99% of things. You know what I mean? Ho-Oh, that's going to be a solid C tier. I mean, Ho-Oh's got a couple of things going for it. It's got Regenerator, it's got Sacred Fire, but these things aren't really good in... These things aren't really worth it into a lot of matchups. Like, Ho-Oh has the bulk and the stats to deal with the two S tiers, Cali Ice and Cali Shadow, and it does very well into Koraidon, but it struggles with the existence of Urshifu on every single team. Like, in a vacuum, if it was just restricted, unrestricted, Ho-Oh is actually pretty decent, but since we're not playing in a vacuum, Ho-Oh actually struggles with the partners of everything, like Booster Raging Bolt, Surging Strikes Urshifu, you know? Incineroar is even an issue, because this thing wants to run Clear Amulet. It just gets like faked out and knocked off, and then you get pivoted on. It has no setup. It usually has to run Coaching Urshifu next to it on most of the teams that I see, so I don't think it's that great. Groudon, I'm going to put top of C tier. I think it's not as good as Terapagos, but Groudon, man, bro, you had a huge fall off. It can miss Precipice Blades. It plays a lot like Koraidon. Don't get me wrong. It plays a lot like Koraidon teams, but Groudon really struggles. Like, you could put Groudon in this team over Koraidon, and you could play it almost the exact same way, only that your Pokemon's not as fast, doesn't hit as hard, and now has a move that misses. I really don't know how else to analyze it. If Rain goes up versus it, it really struggles. Where with Koraidon, if Rain goes up versus it, it doesn't struggle too much because it didn't really need the sun to not die to water moves. It already resisted them. It was just kind of like gravy. So yeah, you could make the argument bottom of C tier. Just know that I'm putting it, or not bottom of C tier, bottom of B tier. I'm going to say top of C tier. I don't think it's on the level of these guys. Rayquaza, I'm going to put top of D tier. I tried it. It's a fun Pokemon. Don't get me wrong, but I think it requires you to have like a Weezing on your team, almost exclusively because you don't want to lose to Farigiraf or Psychic Terrain or whatever. It's an E-Speed bot. That's all it does. It's bulky. It's an E-Speed bot. It turns off weather. It's kind of cool and niche in some situations, but it's not great. Dialga Origin Form, I'm going to put both the Dialgas here. They just don't do much. Their Trick Room Mons, Steel Dragon's interesting, but they've yet to have any real like performances, so I just don't see them. Same's gonna go for Palkia. I think Palkia is a little bit better though. Water Dragon is pretty good. I'm gonna put both of the Giratinas in F tier. Wow, the Sinnoh trio really sucks in VGC, doesn't it? Giratina doesn't do anything, and every time I talk trash about Giratina, there's always like Giratina bots in my comments being like, oh, actually Giratina is great because this and this and this. You can't fake out it. It has Phantom Forces and whatever. No, Giratina is actually quite bad because here's the biggest issue with it. I can go really in depth with how it loses to like Calyrex Shadow, how it loses to Cali Ice, how it loses to even Koraidon somehow. But the main issue is that the defensive Giratina, you're playing Stall, and Giratina does not have Recover. It does not have Roost. It has no recovery other than like Leftovers, and I think maybe it gets Pain Split. Yeah, that's not great recovery. So if you're playing Stall, that's the only one you can run a real item on, Leftovers. If you're playing offensive, you have Grisius Orb, right? You have Grisius Orb Giratina, which you're stuck running. If Grisius Core Giratina could run a clear amulet, and if it got something like, I don't know, Dragon Dance, then maybe it could do something, but the issue is it just doesn't. Giratina not being able to run an item on its more offensive form is a huge drawback for it. You're stuck running like a pretty subpar item that in your typing isn't great either. I don't know. It's just bad. It's bad. Not as bad as Mewtwo though. Reshiram, I genuinely don't know where to rank this guy. It hasn't done anything notable this entire format. I'm going to say it's probably worse than Dialga. Zekrom is definitely worse than Lugia. It doesn't even have a gimmick. Zekrom's so bad. It's just, it wishes, he wants to be him so bad. He wants to be Miraidon so bad, guys, but he just isn't. Kyurem Black, it's the same deal. I'm going to put it above Lugia. Kyurem White, actually pretty decent. I think it's bottom of C tier. Kyurem White's really cool. It's able to do one very specific thing, but it does it very well. Kyurem White is a Pokemon which can spam Blizzard. And Blizzard, as we all know, is very strong. You know what else is very strong? Kyurem White's Blizzard, because Kyurem White's Blizzard is off of 170 special attack and 95 speed. I have seen Terra Ice Kyurem White absolutely rock my team. It's also really good Assault Vest Pokemon. You run Terra Ice, Blizzard, Icy Wind, Freeze Dry, and like Dragon Pulse or Draco Meteor. I like Draco Meteor. And you just knock things out. It is just a genuinely frustrating Pokemon to deal with. It's very good next to Alolan Ninetales, because Alolan Ninetales can not only provide it further speed control coming off of its 109 base speed, but it also has access to Aurora Veil with Snow Up. Snow is going to boost the defense of this guy. As an Ice type, it becomes legitimately difficult to KO. It's a very bulky Pokemon. Its biggest weakness should be Urshifu, but the issue is it resists Surging Strikes because it's part Dragon type. So it's just not able to do it. Also, Freeze Dry is just a broken move. 70 base power is like, when they made Freeze Dry, they're like, oh, this will be fine because it's not that strong. It's 70 base power, but it will hit most things that wants to. It'll hit the water types that resist like ice moves for super effective damage, which is really cool. But the issue is, on Kyurem, it's a little too strong. 170 base power, you're dealing like 50% to like AV Kyogre minimum, even before like Terra Ice. So it's a really, really strong Pokemon, guys. The only issue is it falls apart everywhere else. Like if you have manual weather, it's difficult to deal with. If you're playing like against a Koraidon, they can just like Terra Fire on you and have Sun active, and it makes it really difficult to play. Kyurem's cool, but it's not incredible. Okay, base Kyurem actually is worse than Mewtwo. These guys are obviously. Let me put this here. Let me add a row below. Make it this. Actually, no. So it wants to be this color. Okay. And then this one will be, dang it, what'd I just do? This one will be Wapel. We'll call it okay. So when we got Cosmog goes below Cosmoem. All right, yeah, okay. Technically, Kyurem can play the game, so he's gonna stay up there. But the rest of these guys don't even play the game. Necrozma, yeah, you probably right there. Now go right there. There we go. All right. Isn't it messed up that Mewtwo's down here with incomplete legendaries? Solgaleo, interesting Pokemon, not incredible. It plays like a Metagross. It's like having another Metagross in your team. It's kind of interesting. Coaching next to this guy is pretty decent. He hasn't done anything this format. He has a good matchup into Cali Ice, bad matchup into Cali Shadow, okay matchup into Kyogre, okay matchup into Miraidon, but it's pretty unnotable. I'm going to put it top of D tier. Lunala, I'm going to put probably a top of C tier. Lunala is not terrible. It's a pretty cool Pokemon. It has like Expanding Force, Power Herb, Meteor Beam shenanigans. It is basically just a Trick Room Pokemon, but it's good. It's good. It's very weak to Snarl. I played it a few times. I think it's very strong when I pilot it. It feels very weak when I'm not piloting it, to be honest. When I'm playing against it, it feels really weak, but when I'm playing it, it feels really strong. I don't know how to explain that phenomenon. Maybe I'm just different. But yeah, Lunala top of C tier. Necrozma Duskmane, I'm going to put just below Groudon because it's difficult to pilot, but it's still quite good. I'm also going to put Dawnwings Necrozma. You can interchange these guys. If you want like super hard Trick Room, you go Dawnwings Necrozma. If you want like soft Trick Room or like speed options, you go Lunala. But they're basically the same Pokemon, other than Lunala has like Shadow Shield and Necrozma has Prism Armor. They play very similarly. Also, Lunala has Wide Guard. Yeah, Lunala top of C tier because this thing doesn't get Wide Guard. But they play basically the same, just this is slower. Zacian. Definitely now top of C tier. This guy's not done cooking. We'll put him here. This guy's not done cooking. We'll put them like there. Yeah, okay. Zacian, I think top of C tier. I think it is a pilotable Pokemon. It has some results. I've seen Zacian Regidrago do quite well in tournaments. Definitely more like an Unga Bunga hit you hard Pokemon. Does well with like coaching Urshifu if you really want to run that. Does well with Regidrago, like I said. I've seen Whimsicott on the team as well as like the main speed control. There's really not much to say. It has fallen off quite a bit since Generation 9 or Generation 8. But it's still quite a phenomenal Pokemon if you're able to pilot it well. And I think that Zacian balance is something that shouldn't be slept on, but it's definitely not like as strong as like Terrapagos. So I'm going to put it there. I'm going to go ahead and put Zamazenta top of B tier. I don't think it's gone. I think Zamazenta is still quite a good archetype that is just waiting for the next iteration of it to drop. We've seen a couple of innovations on it. For a while, people were running like Iron Defense Body Press, and then people figured out like, hey, maybe don't do that. And you can actually just put it next to a Chenpao and click Body Press with the defense drop. By the way that Body Press's defense drop interacts with Chenpao is sort of Ruin drops everything's defense, but it drops it after the shift happens. So because Body Press turns your defense stat into an attack stat, it's not lowered. You still deal a lot of damage. If you want to lower the damage of Body Press, you ironically lower the attack stat with Wo-Chen instead. Like, that's how you do it. It's reversed from what you think it is. But yeah, you're able to absolutely nuke things with +1 Body Press off of its massive defense stat. What is its defense stat again? I always forget. Zamazenta. It's got 140 defense at +1 by default. You run like Body Press, Wide Guard, Protect, and Heavy Slam right now. And that's like really strong. It's also fairly fast. You can outspeed quite a lot of Pokemon, and it's really difficult to KO, especially with Rillaboom for recovery, or even like if you want to run like Pollen Puff and Moongus, that's also quite decent. And yeah, so I like Rillaboom, Chenpao. Here, let me get rid of these guys. I like Rillaboom, Chenpao, Incineroar, Raging Bolt, Urshifu. Like I go full physical except for like the Raging Bolt basically when I play this sort of team, and I find it very, very effective. But yeah, it's a good Pokemon. Very strong, very strong. Necrozma does one thing. Oh, there's two variants of Necrozma. There's like that weird Tinkaton Necrozma team that uses Specs Necrozma with Terra Poison next to Fake Out Moldbreaker Tinkaton. And then there's like the Necrozma that you'll face most of the time on the ladder. That is running like Toxic Cosmic Power that's really annoying. And as much as I like Necrozma Stall, it's not like the best archetype. I'm gonna have to put it like top of D tier, probably above all the rest of these guys, just because he can go offensive or defensive. It's a little flexible. But yeah, that's my ranking because I did rank them within the tiers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you disagree, if you're one of the many Lugia and Giratina lovers in my comments, let me know. Be weird about it. Have a nice one. Goodbye.